Hello, Jaime Bennett here, the host of The Warrior Within. I wanted to take a moment to talk about The Warrior Within's new sponsor. I'm very excited to be partnering up with an amazing sponsor and a very multi-talented musician by the name of Diane Cole. Diane Cole is a mental health therapist and a singer-songwriter. Her upcoming album, called Happy Fish and Other Delights, contains songs about death, rebirth, and transformation. The album pays tribute to the smallest of warriors, a little goldfish with one fin called Happy Fish, who inspired Diane to start writing songs again. Be sure to check out her music page on Facebook, Diane Cole Music, at www.facebook.com/DianeCole17. You can also subscribe to her YouTube channel and stay up to date on the latest music video releases, including the one for her first single, Cowboy Church. Hello and welcome to another episode of The Warrior Within. I'm your host, Jaime Bennett. I wanted to talk about something very important on this episode of The Warrior Within. And like all the other episodes, I'm going to be covering a very sensitive topic, so viewer discretion is strongly advised. I wanted to talk about the subject of this episode because it needs to be brought to the forefront and it's extremely important. I'm going to start off with this question. What do you think when you see, and I'm going to include a visual photo of what I'm about to ask you. What do you think when you see a ballerina, when you see a ballet dancer? What comes across your mind? Elegance, perfection, very poignant, beauty, grace? That's not all there is to becoming a ballerina. There are very dark sides to becoming a ballerina. And a lot of times they put a lot of strain on their body. They put their body through a lot of difficult situations. And not only that, you have to think of the mental stresses that's put upon these dancers. You have to think about eating disorders, and you have to think about other dark things that are going on behind the scenes of ballet. We don't always see the things that are going on behind ballet. Like, we just, get to see a ballet production and we think in our mind, oh, that is so beautiful. And sometimes, little girls, when they're growing up, they see ballerinas and they think, that's what I want to be when I grow up, because they don't realize all of the work it takes to become a ballerina. They don't realize all of the stress that ballerinas place upon their body. I'm going to be talking about some of the statistics behind ballet, like the darker side of ballet, and I'm going to be talking about the stresses as well as eating disorders and other things surrounding the world of dance. So let's get started with Dark Secrets of Ballet. And I'm going to be looking at some web pages to help me explain some of this because I'm not a dancer. I've never been a ballet dancer. I can honestly tell you that I did attend a dance class when I was at the university level, and we studied a brief segment of ballet. And in just that brief segment of ballet, it was extremely difficult. So I have nothing but respect for dancers, and I have nothing but respect for ballet dancers. This, what I'm about to read you, comes from grunge.com, and it's grunge.com/81048/dark-secrets-of-ballet-revealed. And this is an article that took place March 25th of 2022. That's when it was last edited and updated. And it's an article by Naomi Arellano Summer. Hopefully I pronounced that name right. I don't want to butcher somebody's name. I'm terrible at pronouncing names. I really need to practice with that. But here goes. Ballet is a very beautiful art form, and it is tremendously painstaking. It is a very painstaking form of artwork. You know, they say people suffer for art. It is very, very true in the world of ballet. The goal is for everything to look effortless, as though it didn't cost the dancer anything at all, even though it is, of course, ridiculous. Many aspects of the dance are physical. Every jump, every turn, every bend that goes wrong could also break something in the dancer's body. Not to mention, it could spoil the image of a strong dancer, acting out a story that is beyond themselves. So yes, you know, dancers, especially ballerina dancers, are perfectionists. I'm an artist. Like I said, I've never been a dancer, but you know, I can kind of compare a little bit here, at least a thought process. Ballet dancers are obsessed with being perfect, and they get this way because of the tremendous strain that their instructors place upon them. And a lot of these dancers start at a very, very young age. They start of like the age of 4 or 5. Can you imagine that? Like, you're just a kid, you're just learning about things in life, and you have this dance instructor telling you, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, you did this wrong. I don't think that I could have handled any pressure when I was like 4 or 5. I can't imagine, you know, the dancers who started when they were 4 or 5 going through this, and you know, the strain that it put on their mentality, the strain that it put on their bodies. They didn't really get to be a kid, and I I don't think that I could have gone through that, and I don't think that I would have wanted to go through that. I think the first time that an instructor yelled at me and said I did something wrong, I would want to quit, cry, and go home. Um, yeah, like ballerinas go through a lot for their art form, and I have nothing but respect for dancers. I have nothing but respect for ballet dancers. And there is a difference between a ballerina and a prima ballerina. A ballerina is normally one who dances the chorus line, like, you know, the back, kind of like backup dancers in a band, you know, behind a musician. Well, ballerinas are the ones that are the mini, and the prima ballerina is the one that stands out beyond the rest. Like, you're going to completely notice who the prima ballerina, the principal dancer is in a production, because they'll be the main character. Like I said, ballerinas they suffer for their art form, and they have to go through a lot of stresses. They put a lot of stress on their body. They put a lot of stress on their mentality because they want to strive for perfection. Everything has to be perfect in their world. Their body has to be perfect. Their dance steps, dance numbers have to be perfect. Their turnout has to be perfect. Their feet have to be perfect. Everything has to be perfectly aligned. There are shows like Tiny Pretty Things that would have you believe that even murder would not be out of the ordinary, especially when it comes to ballet and competition. There's a lot of competition in the world of ballet because For a lot of the productions, there are only a number of spots available, and they have to compete for those spots, and only the best of the best are going to get selected. So, can you imagine the mentality that that places on somebody? Can you imagine the stresses that their mental status goes through? Can you imagine the stress that they put on their body to get their body to do even more than it's already expected to do in the world of dance? Dancers are put through their paces every time they step onto the floor. Dance is hours and weeks and years of hard work. And the life of a ballerina definitely has its downsides, like I had told you earlier. They have to keep their body at a certain size. They have to, have a lot of strength, and they have to complete their dance numbers perfectly. Like I said, there is a limited number of spots. So because there's a limited number of spots and they compete for those spots, injuries are extremely common in the dance world because dance is a full-time career. Dance does involve a lot of physical correcting and placement of the body, and as a result, some teachers, some instructors focus way too much on losing weight or not having the right body for dance. Like I said earlier, a lot of dancers end up becoming anorexic, or they end up having body image issues, including body dysmorphia, because they're putting so much pressure on their bodies to be perfect. Ballet is a popular Russian art form, and the Vagna Nova Ballet Academy in St. Petersburg teaches students how to dance properly over an 8-year period. Dance teachers spoke to several Russian ballet teachers when they taught in the United States, learning which of their methods had changed and which had stayed the same. The Vagna Nova Academy only accepts students with the right body for ballet, and learning how to teach everyone individually, including those students who wouldn't go on to become professional dancers. That was something that all the teachers had to figure out. Since dance can be such a physical art, dancers can be injured easily, like I had told you earlier. Performing repetitive movements for hours and days on end can lead to overuse injuries in the hips, ankles, and knees. Male dancers who need to be able to lift females in specific choreography can develop arm and shoulder problems. And that was according to an article in Romper. Injuries do start at a young age, particularly with dancers who have taken several classes and rehearsals throughout a week. For example, young dancers who aim to become professional usually receive their first ankle sprains by the age of 13 years old. Can you imagine that? When I was 13, I was just trying to get through school. I couldn't imagine the added pressure of dance. I just was trying to make it through a math class without wanting to pull my hair out. Dr. Derek Oriaki, who works at the Virginia Sports Medicine Institute, writes Romper he had seen several 16-year-old dancers with hip injuries requiring surgery. That's insane. Can you imagine that, being 16 years old, barely a teenager, barely starting your life, and having to have hip surgery? That's very, very scary. And it turned out that most of the important aspects of dance, and as a result, the hip impingement is the most common since it develops in part due to the difference dancers have in external and internal rotation. And that was according to NeuroTour. Plus, a lot of these dancers, like, people don't really think about it, but a lot of these dancers do perform like 8 shows a week. I know when I was like in drama club or when I did musicals that we had to do dance numbers in, we did like maybe 4 or 5 shows when I was in grade school. And I wasn't a professional dancer, but that was very tiring. I can't imagine doing 8 shows a week. Irritations sometimes are not noticed until they start hurting. And snapping the hip starts as a snapping sound while performing batements. And it irritates until it becomes painful. Dancers partly cause their own problems by dancing through their injuries. Like I said earlier, it's a very competitive sport, and if an injury knocks them out of being able to live their dream or get their dream role, like in a dance number or a dance performance, a lot of times they pretend that they don't have an injury and they keep dancing through the injury, and that makes it even worse. It makes it harder on them, and in turn, it causes more problems. Like, what could have been fixed with rest became more serious and may turn into having to have surgery. It may turn into not being able to dance ever again. It's a really scary situation, and a lot of times, like I said, dancers feel the need to pretend that they're not injured so that they can, compete for that coveted role in a dance academy or performance. Um, Several dancers do end up dropping out of classes because it does get to be a bit too much, with the instructors coming down on them, always having to be perfect. They have schoolwork on top of this because a lot of them are young teenagers, and they have their parents coming down on them for not only making sure that they get A's in school, but also making sure that they are perfect at dance. And like I said, I can't imagine having more pressures placed on you other than just merely trying to make it through your teen years. Like, being a teenager is confusing enough, but adding dance on top of that would make it 100 times more worse. And a lot of teenagers, they go through their awkward years. Like, some of them are socially awkward. And I realize that, sometimes like dancing or sometimes being in art, kind of helps some of those teenagers that do go through awkward phases and aren't very social. Nearly all dancers develop some form of dysfunctional eating. Even if it is not full-blown eating disorder, weight gain and loss can trigger the need to be perfect. It's woven into the fabric of dance, writes Point Magazine. Ballet is such a specific art that dancers become self-disciplined to compensate for what they perceive to be their own failures. And that eventually leads to the mindset of being perfect. And that can become an obsession. When combined with an eating disorder or just disordered eating, the consequences can be disastrous. It can become a downward spiral. There are so many pressures that teenage dancers face in the world. I mean, they're trying to get through high school, like I've said. They're trying to, make their parents happy. They're trying to make their instructors happy. But worst of all, they are trying to make themselves happy. They put more pressure on themselves than anybody else does. According to an article in Behind the Curtain, The Body Control in Ballet by Paula T. Kelso. Paula T. Kelso. The problem with anorexia in dance is that the culture and social media changes show the ideal woman being super skinny or a skeletal person. That changes the perception of how people should look changes. In the 1930s, as well as the 1940s, ballerinas were considered thin, but looking back, they were still healthy looking. They had an average body size. In the 1950s, Marilyn Monroe. I was going to talk about Marilyn Monroe because when I think of a healthy body shape, when I think of a healthy body size, I think of Marilyn Monroe. And you might ask why I think of her. It's because, did you know at one point in her career in the 1950s, she was a size 16? A size 16. That would be considered huge nowadays. Huge. But I would consider that to be a healthy size. And I really hope that society gets back to the point of viewing women who are bigger as just as beautiful as the women who are smaller. It goes back to that whole beauty comes in all shapes and sizes. And I'm going to keep saying that because I really, really, really hope that society can normalize that becomes something normal. And then teenagers and young girls won't feel the needed, the added pressure of looking like a model in a magazine. They won't feel the added pressure of being super, super thin. Healthy. I think that, as long as you eat healthy and you treat your body right, then that should be good. But Marilyn Monroe, a lot of people don't realize that she was a heavier person. A lot of people consider a size 2 to be beautiful. And celebrities become thinner and thinner and thinner. And the average woman is heavier today. This makes an even larger difference between the real and ideal. A lot of times in magazines, I've talked about this before on my show, but a lot of times in magazines, do you know that they airbrush the photos? What you're seeing in the magazines has been airbrushed. It has been fixed. It has gotten rid of all the blemishes, and sometimes they take a few pounds off of the model. So you don't know what the person who's posing in the magazines actually looks like because they have fixed the pictures. The perception of beauty can lead to a lot of pressure that ballet dancers put upon themselves. And like I said, they put more pressure upon themselves than outside pressure. And it can quickly escalate into an eating disorder, like I had said earlier. Weight is a very hard topic because girls who weren't the thinnest and weren't put on top, they get an obsession. They get an obsession with it, and they think, what can I do more? It becomes an obsession, and they get to the point of where they're like, maybe if I eat less in calories, maybe if I skip breakfast, maybe if I skip lunch, maybe if I skip dinner, maybe if I just drink water for a few days. It's a very, very scary situation, and I imagine a lot of them get hospitalized. A lot of times they do battle with self-image issues, and like I said, a lot of them have body dysmorphia issues. So, a lot of ballet dancers face a lot of pressure, and it's not just a dancer looking absolutely gorgeous in a pink tutu. It's not it's not a guy looking thin and masculine. They all have to work very hard to do what they do. They have a lot of pressure that they put on themselves. And like I said, there's not very many roles or very many spots in a dance academy. And it does become very, very competitive, and it can be very, very scary. There's a lot of dark sides to ballet that a lot of people don't know about. Like I said, there are a lot of dark sides to dancing, to ballet, that a lot of people don't know about. And some of those dark sides can be portrayed you can see it portrayed in movies such as The Black Swan or Center Stage. The Black Swan shows you, if you've ever seen the movie, I don't want to give any spoilers away, but it does show, two female ballet dancers competing for the same part, and it becomes scary ugly. Like, they end up trying to kill each other in the movie to get this part. In Center Stage, it shows you eating disorders. It shows you one of the ballerinas has an eating disorder. She's so scared to eat anything that they show her dabbing her napkin on pizza to get rid of the grease, and then she puts it in her mouth and she starts eating the pizza, and she's worried about it. She gets scared, like she's looking at the pizza like it's a foreign object, like it's not food. And so, although that all the parts in Center Stage or Black Swan may not be true to life with ballet dance, there are parts in it that are true. There are parts in it that do portray ballet dancing accurately, and that's really, really scary. The biggest part of ballet that's scary is the competition, the lengths that the ballet dancers might go through to land a role, injuring themselves, continually dancing with an injury, competing competing probably worse than football players. You think of a tactical sport, and you think of, like, a sport where they're physically competing. That would be football, but people don't usually think of it in the world of ballet. It probably does happen. It probably does happen. And like I said earlier, that movie, I think it was called, or show was called Tiny Little Dancers or something like that. I had mentioned it earlier in this broadcast. But they would have you think that, even murder would be involved in ballet. I don't think that sometimes these shows portraying things like this are too far-fetched, and that's really, really scary. I'm not saying that, ballet dancers kill each other to get a part, but it is a very, very competitive sport. Like, people don't often think about it being a competitive sport, but it is. And that's really, really scary. The only part that we get to see is the finished product. We get to see a ballerina dressed in her tutu. We get to see a ballerina, male ballerina, being strong and lifting the female elegantly. We see those parts of it. We don't see the dark sides to ballet. We don't see what happens in the background. It's very, very scary, the lengths that these ballerinas, the lengths that these dancers will go through to land a part. They put stress on their bodies, they put stress on their mentality, they have to be perfect, and it becomes an obsession. it becomes so much of an obsession a lot of times that they get eating disorders, like I've said before. And it gets to the point where, sometimes they're like, maybe I'll skip breakfast, maybe I will skip lunch, maybe I'll skip dinner, maybe I'll just drink water today. And that's really, really scary. Um, I wouldn't want to go through something like that because I'm wanting to land apart. I wouldn't want to inflict my body with that much pressure. I wouldn't want my body to be unhealthy and resent me. I mean, these ballet dancers put a lot of pressure on themselves, and the pressure they put on themselves is worse than outside pressures. Um, Center stage is one of the first times that I even noticed ballet. Like, I've never really been one of those people that have been into ballet. I know a lot of little girls when they're younger, they're like, oh, their costumes are so pretty. Mommy, that ballerina looks so pretty. And, Barbie has a lot of ballerina characters. And so, a lot of little girls just think ballerinas are beautiful, but it's just, there's a dark side to it. And I'm just wanting to bring that to the forefront. I mean, it needs to be talked about, and body image needs to become more normalized. Like, beauty comes in all shapes and sizes, and I'm going to say that. I'm going to say that a lot because that's what I teach my daughter. I teach my daughter that beauty comes in all shapes and sizes. You don't have to be a size 2 or a size 0 to be beautiful. You can be a size 16 like Marilyn Monroe. She was beautiful. You can be a size 12. I think beauty comes from everywhere. Like, all shapes and sizes from across the country, different hair colors. It doesn't matter. I think that your personality and your soul is what's beautiful. I hope that you all have enjoyed this program. I hope that it has been educational and informational, and I hope in the very least it has brought to your attention a different side of dance, a different side of ballet, and maybe the next time you see a ballet performance in a movie or a ballet performance on TV or even live, you'll realize that there's so much more to being a dancer, to being a ballet dancer, than just a tutu. I hope that you guys enjoyed this program, and I hope that you will stay tuned next time and stay tuned to after the program for a special message. As always, love, hugs, and blessings. We're going to start highlighting special causes in each episode of The Warrior Within. That is very, very important because people need to realize that there are resources available for any situation that they may be facing and need help with. This week's highlighted special cause is going to be the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you or someone you know is struggling or in crisis, help is available. Please call or text 988 or chat at 988lifeline.org. Again, call or text 988 or chat at 988lifeline.org. Please do not hesitate to receive help.